Welcome back to another episode of the Higher Up Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Smoke, or Higher Up Wellness. This is episode 6, and in this episode, we're going to be covering something that I think is appropriate for the time of year, New Year's, because I'm going to talk about how to build sustainable habits in a way that actually fucking makes sense and works. Because if everyone figured out how to build sustainable, great, healthy fitness habits, well, there wouldn't be people still trying to get in shape, and there always will be people trying to get in shape. And I believe it's because they fall back into bad habits. So what I'm going to be discussing today in this episode is I'm going to touch on why habits are critical and why you should forget about your goals and focus on your habits. I'm also going to talk a little bit about why I think most people fail and what I believe causes most people to give up on their fitness goals. And of course, I'm going to allude to where I got a lot of this information from, because as we know, I'm just regurgitating things from people a whole lot smarter than me. And then I'm going to talk about what I believe the solution is, or one solution that I think is viable to build in sustainable, healthy habits to allow you to finally get fit forever in 2024. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about in this episode is an ode to the great James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits, which was a life-changing read for me. If you haven't, go get the book or go get it on Audible, or maybe it's on Spotify audiobooks now if you have that. It really is a life-changing book, and it explains the psychology, the science, and the neuroscience behind why habits truly are the reason we are who we are, how we are, and why we are. Now, throughout this episode, I want to apologize. This is probably the third episode in a row that I've sounded like I have a frog in my throat. I'm finally on antibiotics. I tried everything I could to get away from the antibiotics before I resorted to them. I went holistic, I went natural, but I think the sinus infection that I have is just too far gone. So it seems to be improving now after 3.5 or 4 weeks of being sick consecutively. And I'm just ready to be better. So I'm on antibiotics. I'm going to go on a little gut health protocol after that to give my body tons of probiotics and put back what the antibiotics do kill, because they kill the good and the bad bacteria. But that's another topic for another episode. Today, I really want to make the focus of this conversation habits and why they are everything. So let's start with, I want you to forget about your goals and I want you to focus on your habits, or as Clear calls them, your systems. One of my favorite things that he says is right in the beginning of the book. We don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. Think about that quote. I believe it's incredibly profound. When you think about the things people want, the goals, the end outcomes, people want abs. They want bigger biceps. Maybe if you're a lady, you want a bigger, more toned ass, something to that effect. You want the end outcomes, but you don't have the systems and the habits in place to get there. Otherwise, you'd be well on your way, or you maybe even would have them. So when I say forget about your goals, of course, it's great to write things down you want to achieve. I'm a big believer in that. There's psychology behind goals mattering, and people who write down what they want to achieve are 42% more likely to achieve that thing. So I think goals matter, but I think once you have them and they're clearly stated, forget about them and start focusing on your systems and your daily habits. When you think about the people who really want to get fit and want these end outcomes, they think about what they want, but they don't think about what they're doing now that's keeping them from getting there as deeply as they should. Everybody has a general awareness, but not everybody is aware enough to realize they may be doing small things every day to sabotage them or set them back from those desired end outcomes. So let's talk about that a little bit more. If you wanted to run a marathon and you had never run more than a mile in your life and you were in terrible running shape, you wouldn't immediately go out tomorrow and try to run 26.2 miles. You would start small, right? And I believe that is where people fail, is they don't start small and they don't try to master what the great football coaches call the basic blocking and tackling. Any great sports team you'll hear about masters the fundamentals. What I think the big mistake is that most people make is they try to do too much at once. So let's take New Year's, for example. Everyone has New Year's resolutions. 90% of people have fitness-based New Year's resolutions somewhere in their goals or habits. And maybe they'll say, all right, starting January 1st, I'm going to meal prep. I'm going to cook all of my proteins in bulk for the week. I'm going to have everything ready in the fridge. I'm going to start hitting 10,000 steps a day. I'm going to hit my protein goal. I'm going to be in the gym 5 times a week. I'm going to sleep 8 hours a night. I'm going to drink a gallon of water a day. Whoa, slow down, compadre, please. You are trying to sprint and you haven't even figured out how to crawl yet. Now, think about building a habit or building a skill in forms of starting as small as possible and stacking those skills on top of each other. I'll allude to that more later in the episode. But I think when people try to take on all of these insurmountable tasks that they've never done before, they try to do 10 things at once. And when they can't even do 3 of them, they perceive it as a failure. And that is a loss against your confidence, against your self-conscious self. And it hinders you from changing your identity, which ultimately I believe leads people to give up because they haven't found a sustainable way to build these habits into their life little by little. So maybe instead of kicking soda, meal prepping every day, hitting 10K steps every day, gym 5 times a week, maybe we try to string together fewer habits and build on those and become an expert in those before we try to do the whole thing all at once. Let's adopt the homage of building the plane as we fly it a little bit. I think it's a really great perspective to take when you're trying to build your fitness habits from ground zero. Before we get into how to do that, I think it's important to talk a little bit about why your system and habits suck, why people fail. This is a great concept, again, from the book about the psychology behind why people make the poor decisions or have the bad habits that they do. So let's talk about fitness specifically. When you binge eat or you eat junk food from a fast food bag every time you're hungry, or you grab the nearest candy bar every time you have a twinge of hunger, or you mindlessly scroll and sit on your ass for hours on TikTok or Instagram, or binge Netflix for 3 hours when you could easily be at the gym or up walking, you don't actually want to do those things because you know they're bad for you. No one in their right mind genuinely wants to do those things because we always feel worse afterward. What you want is the feeling you get from those things. You want the serotonin. You want the dopamine. It all comes back to the neurotransmitters. You've all heard me say at this point, the way we feel, think, and act is a battle against the neurotransmitters in our brain. And we have to do things to give our body the right neurotransmitters, but we have to do it in the right ways because the dopamine you get from scrolling, from sitting on the couch and watching Netflix, that's cheap dopamine. That's why when you do it long enough, it starts to almost trigger a pain response because your body's saying, stop, the dopamine drip is too high, it's too concentrated, go do something else. So, what do I recommend? Channel the new habits to give us the same feelings and end outcomes and results, because there are things on other ends of the spectrum that give us those same neurotransmitters, the dopamine, the serotonin, everything we're looking for to feel good. So we need to figure out, one, what am I trying to feel? Why am I doing this? What feeling am I chasing? Why do I eat the double quarter pounder with cheese with a Coke at 11 a.m. and then know I'm going to feel like shit in an hour? It's because in that moment, it's cheap dopamine. And you want that feeling in the moment because we're flawed. Our brains want to keep us safe and comfortable. They don't want to get us ripped, jacked, shredded, and uncomfortable. And sometimes making the right decision for yourself can be uncomfortable, and your brain perceives that as a threat. It doesn't know what is a threat and what isn't. It just knows neurotransmitters. When I hop in cold water, I know I'm not going to die, but my brain says, holy shit, release epinephrine, release cortisol. This guy's going to die if he doesn't get out of the water. And every cell in my body is screaming, get out, get out, get out. Because my brain only recognizes threat and safety. So what we need to do is channel into habits that give us the same neurotransmitter release without degrading our progress or regressing us in any given way. What can you do? Hard exercise, dopamine, epinephrine, serotonin, all of those things. Now, the tough part is getting in and getting started, but we all know you feel tremendously better once you finish that workout or walk out of the gym. Sticking to our goals. These are all reward pathways. The feel good from eating junk food, the feel good from scrolling. These are reward pathways back to dopamine, which I believe is the king neurotransmitter. They're all reward pathways. So we have to rewire, and we can, scientifically backed, rewire our neural pathways to trigger different reward systems. We just have to lean into the discomfort of changing them at first. So sticking to our goals. When you know you're adhering to a goal you wrote down, you get dopamine from that because dopamine is a neurotransmitter of pursuit. It's a motivational neurotransmitter. So you get dopamine when you say, I wanted to bench 225, I was at 200 pounds, and now 3 weeks in, I'm at 215 pounds. You get a hit of dopamine from that. Cold exposure, taking a cold shower in the morning. If you have the facilities for an ice bath, taking an ice bath, that shoots dopamine up, that shoots cortisol up, that shoots serotonin up, or not, sorry, serotonin, epinephrine up. Cortisol is not a bad thing. It's a good thing in the morning. That's why I like to get cold in the mornings. But you feel so good after you do it. Hitting PRs in the gym, like I alluded to earlier, going out and setting a goal and crushing it. Those all give us the same neurotransmitter feeling. They're just more expensive ways of doing it. You got to put more in. You got to make a bigger investment to get that dopamine out rather than putting pennies on the dollar in the form of your health and well-being for the dopamine hit from the scrolling and the double cheeseburger. It's a bigger investment, but it's worthwhile, just like anything in life. So we've talked about why I think people fail, because they do far too much. They try to do too much. They become overwhelmed and they just fucking give up. And we've also talked about why people do the things they do, or why you may be making the bad choices you're making to eat the shitty food or sit on the couch or scroll your phone for multiple hours. It's because we're all seeking the feeling that it gives us. We don't want the thing, we want the feeling that it gives us. So we need to rewire our neural pathways and our reward pathways to do different things. So let's talk about the solution or the practical actionable tips that I would recommend for doing those. Habit stacking and mindset shifts. This is going to be a very simple explanation and probably one of, if not my shortest episode yet. So this is a twofold solution. I'm going to talk about the principle of habit stacking that I got from James Clear, and I'm going to talk about the mindset shift that needs to take place for you to be successful in this stuff long term. First, I want to talk about the mindset shift. This is very simple, but I believe it's very profound. If you've been watching my videos and hear me talk about my favorite quotes and aphorisms, I believe the best quote of all time, or the most profound for me, was when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at start to change. Perspective is everything. Your perception is your reality. So you have to change your perception on certain things. What do I mean by that? Think about every time you go to the gym, or you eat right, or you meal prep, or you hit your step goal. Most of you probably say, I have to go to the gym. I have to hit my step goal. I have to hit my protein goal. I have to hit my water goal. I have to get my sleep in. What's the common denominator there? Have to. You have to. But you don't have to. You get to. You literally have to shift your perspective and your literal word choice when you talk about these things. I know it sounds kooky to some of you. For some of you, it may be just totally shifting your paradigm and you're loving it. But perception truly is reality. And if you can condition your brain into saying, I get to go to the gym today. I get to hit my protein goal today. I get to hit my water goal. It becomes an opportunity and not an obligation. And when something is an opportunity and not an obligation, we're more likely to do it. I know it sounds oversimplified to some of you, but if you haven't tried this perspective shift truly changed the way I live my life. It allowed me to stay fit forever. It allowed me to be successful in my business. When I find myself struggling or wanting to do something or not wanting to do something, I simply say, I get to do this. I get to sit in front of the camera and I get to talk to you all. I get to have people listen to me. When I don't want to make a video, I say, what the fuck are you doing, Michael? You get to do this. This was your dream. When I don't want to go to the gym, I get to do this. I have an able, healthy body. And in that comes the emotion of gratitude. And when you feel grateful for what you do, you see what I'm talking about? It's a snowball of success. When you start to tell yourself you get to do things, you feel grateful for them, you are more fucking likely to do them. So I challenge you to change your mindset and stop saying I have to and start saying I get to. And just try it for 7 days. If you think I'm a crazy kook, just try it and report back. I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts are on this. The next thing I want to talk about is habit stacking. This is a principle I use in my coaching community, in my own life, and I recommend everybody use. So I'll use the example of the coaching community. Remember what I alluded to earlier about people try to do 10 things at once for the New Year's. In my coaching community, for the first 4 weeks when I work with a beginner, we focus on two things nutritionally: protein goal, whole foods. So they have a master food list. I give them a protein goal and I say, go crazy on the master food list, but I want you to get as close to 100% of your calorie consumption from the foods only on this list. When they master protein goal and whole foods, then we can graduate maybe to calorie tracking. Or, for example, a lot of my beginners are only on 3-day gym splits. Now, I built my physique on a 3-day split. I believe anybody can build a physique on a 3-day split. You don't have to be a beginner. But again, some people say, I'm trying to be in the gym 5-6 days a week. And then they see that as a miserable obligation and not an opportunity because every single day of the week they're going to the gym. I found personally and anecdotally, when I break it up into 3 days, I look forward to going because I'm in there less. And I actually am more likely to maintain the habit. I also like the principle of when you're getting familiar and comfortable with the gym, establish minimums and not maximums. So that way, anything you do over that, bonus points, extra dopamine, extra reward pathway rewiring. So if you have 2 times a week as your minimum in the gym and you go 4, you're going to feel like a badass that week and you're more likely to do it again, thereby building a sustainable habit. So pick 2 things that you want to master in your fitness New Year's resolutions and just become militant about adhering to them for 2 to 4 weeks before you even consider adding anything else. So maybe for you, you want to do 10,000 steps a day, hit your protein goal, eat whole foods, and go to the gym 5 times a week and sleep 8 hours a night. Let's focus on, I'm going to hit my 10,000 steps and I'm going to hit my protein goal every day for 2 to 4 weeks. If you do anything else in that regimen or routine, that's a bonus, that's extra dopamine, like I said. And that will create new reward systems for you and make you want to do more of it. And then when you really feel like you're in a place of a streak, like I do in the coaching community, you have to have adhered to protein goal and whole foods for 30 days before we graduate. Do this for 2 to 4 weeks and then stack another habit on top of each other, on top of the others, right? So maybe now you've mastered protein goal and steps. Now we add in your gym routine, but we do 3 days a week instead of 5. And then you do that for 2 to 4 weeks. And you may be saying, but Michael, if I'm not doing all of it, I'm going to slow down my progress. Who cares? You haven't made progress this whole time because you haven't been able to find a sustainable way to build habits into your life to get fit forever. So you need to accept we're playing the long game here. We're talking about making changes for the rest of your life. An extra 4 weeks of maybe a little less gym activity is not going to set you back 10 in the grand scheme of 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Okay, so you have to adopt the mindset of this truly is a lifelong change I'm making. And if I'm serious about that, I'm going to do little bits at a time. When you want to become a millionaire and you want to invest in the stock market, you don't take every dollar you have and throw it in the market. You put a little bit in each month. And over time, compound interest grows that money. Compound interest exists in our habits as well. And it happens when we stack the habits on top of one another. And if you do this after 3 months, you will be so concrete in things like your step and protein goal and your training that you can't regress back to who you were. You have raised your level of awareness around these topics and subjects so that you can't regress back. I can never go back to who I was in 2017, drinking a half a handle of whiskey every 2 or 3 days, eating out 4 or 5 times a week, and sitting on the couch playing video games for hours. My brain will not let me. It is so a part of my routine that it's like brushing my teeth or showering. It's just something I can't do without. And if you can start to view fitness that way and adopt these habits by way of stacking them, and honestly, with the mindset shift, kind of gaslight yourself into doing these things, you actually start to enjoy them. I mean, that's literally what mindset shifts are. You're kind of just gaslighting yourself. Oh, I love this. Oh, I actually absolutely love doing this. I think my friend Dylan O'Brien and I were talking on the phone, and he said there was I think maybe a research study that came out that found that people who talked about hard shit that they were doing like they loved it were more adherent to those things. I talk about how much I love cold exposure. I don't love it. It hurts while I'm doing it, but I love the byproduct. So I gaslight myself. I tell people I can't do without my ice baths. I love it. I do it every day. It's so worth it. I'm gaslighting myself for sure. So make that an end of 2024. Gaslight yourself into getting jacked. I promise you will thank yourself. It's healthy when you gaslight yourself. It's not healthy when you gaslight others. All right? Don't be toxic. But that is, in my summation, why people fail at their habits and where I believe people can improve and build sustainable habits for the rest of their lives. This is a shorter episode. I'm kind of proud of that, keeping it snappy here for you. In good faith and tradition, I'm going to do a step check, but I'm not wearing my Garmin here. I'm wearing my watch that I bought myself for Christmas that I love very much. I'm very happy with. So I don't have a step tracker, but I think I'll go with what I have in my app because I did walk this morning. It is 2:27 Eastern Standard Time, and my steps are at 4,368. That's probably directionally accurate. I think I might have put my Garmin watch in my vest to track, if I'm being honest, because I'm a little bit OCD and I feel weird not having a fitness tracker. But I love this and I wanted to wear it. If you're still here, we're 18 and a half minutes in. Drop your step check in the comments. Hit me with your feedback. If you've dealt with this thing before, if you've dealt with trying to do it all at once and failing, let me know. If this video was helpful, please like and subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. It really does help me out. I'm trying to grow this as best I can. But that is habits in a nutshell. I appreciate you all listening. I look forward to chatting with you in the next one. It isn't easy, but it is simple. Don't overcomplicate it. And Happy New Year, everybody.